Hi. So here we are again. It's Monday again, and the semester is going on by. I thought today on this Monday morning quarterback business, we would take a look at some terminology and explain some things. Several people had asked me, could we just talk a little bit about what some of this stuff means? And because not everybody out there that is in the program is a senior or a junior, so some people are just starting out. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit about what all this means, and we can talk about what these vulnerabilities are as well. One of the things that happens, I think, with the industry, and a lot of industries do this, is we get sort of off in our own world of terminology and nomenclature. And it gets really confusing for people because as you look at these articles, you'll see that there's so much jargon in these articles, and I'm not blaming Threat Post. They're writing to the audience that reads Threat Post, but in general, you'll see stories like this picked up, and I think they have to translate them almost to put them in something like the Washington Post or whatever. So the headline for this article says, Microsoft fixes RCE flaws in out-of-band Windows update. I mean, just in this headline, if you don't know some of this nomenclature, you have no idea what this article is about. And so RCE is a remote code execution. And remote code execution is essentially the idea that somebody can connect to a computer from somewhere else or a device. It doesn't have to be, it's a device computer. It could be an IoT gadget or something. And they somehow either run a script or inject a piece of software onto that device. And this is the source of a lot of sort of sophisticated attacks. Typically, these aren't the kind of attacks they use for real basic stuff like phishing, because phishing often gets you to do the execution for them. But if you can find a flaw like these that would allow you to push something onto somebody's system, that's called a remote code execution. And out-of-band Windows update means that these are not the Windows updates. So, when the machine says, would you like to, I need you to update and restart or whatever, these are the ones where you have to go take action. So you would actually have to download this stuff and put it on the machine if you wanted to do anything. So basically, let's see what this is all about. So it says there's two important severity, and so this is actually important in and of itself. All of these flaws are ranked by NIST. And if you don't know, and it's how many acronyms can you use? And NIST is the National Institute for Standard and Technology, and they end up creating what are called CVEs. And you see them start listing these CVEs down here. And CVEs are a tracking system for flaws. And as you can see, there's quite a few. Now, a lot of them are incredibly esoteric. They're real minutiae things. But, there are big ones that come out that create a lot of problems. For instance, if you've been watching the news show that I do, I've talked about CVE 2020-1472 for a couple of weeks, and that's the net logon, zero logon vulnerability in Microsoft that has been creating a lot of consternation with different people. So this one says that two important severity, and then the important severity is just a ranking system of these flaws. Now, if you go back to last Thursday night, so episode 670 of Security Weekly, on the very first segment, they had some guests in who were actually talking about prioritizing threats. And it was a really interesting segment where they talked about how to utilize these CVEs and the rating systems to try to figure out which threats you needed to fix first. Because it's very easy to say, fix this threat. It's a lot more challenging when you say, we have on campus, 7,000 computers. I don't know how many computers they have on campus, but they have a whole bunch. It's probably not 7,000, say 3,000. So 3,000 computers and 100 servers on campus. Which threat, and you see the CVE here, 17,023, that's just from 2020. Which threat do you patch first? And because remember that when you patch these at home and you just jump in and you say, oh yeah, update, It's not quite the same as when you try to roll out a patch on a server that has a whole bunch of software running on it, because you may roll this patch out and it breaks Roger Central, or it breaks the grade system, or it breaks bridges or whatever. Yeah, so you have to do some testing, which means you have to commit some time, which means on and on and on. So two important severity flaws in Microsoft Windows Codecs library and Visual Studio Code could enable remote code execution. Codecs are essentially translation tools for video and audio, and they're mechanisms to convert certain types of data to other forms that are better streamed. And I'm not going to get into trying to explain everything about that, and I probably couldn't anyway. And Visual Studio, so Visual Studio is Microsoft's development platform for it's sort of their software environment where you can develop C++ code, or Visual Basic, I think still exists, C#, J#. Do they still have J#? I don't even know. Microsoft issued out of band patches for two important. Now here they say, I guess, yeah, up here they have a dash. Be consistent. Important severity vulnerabilities which have exploited could allow for remote code execution. So, okay. So now we kind of know that this is probably a bad thing if we are using these things. So one flaw, and you can go look these CVEs up. So if you just, I'm going to pull this one over. So if you just pull up NIST, you see that NIST has a database of all these things, and they have the information about this. So And you see, they have different tools now you can use to catalog all this stuff and try to figure out what to do about it. And the NIST has this one scored as 10 critical. So 10 critical, well, let's just say that's pretty bad. So this means you probably want to patch this. They have all kinds of reference. Different ones have different things here, depending on. They try to be, as you know, it is NIST, so NIST is supposed to be about consistency. So they are trying to give you guidelines. They have all the instructions down here for all this different stuff, and then they hopefully will tell you what's going on. So this CVE 2020-17,023 is Visual Studio Code. It's a free source code editor, and yes, we know that, or I know that. So made by Microsoft for Windows, and yeah, blah, blah, blah. The other is 17,022 is in the Codecs library. The Codecs module provides stream and interfaces for transcoding data in Windows programs. Okay, so basically you got two different components of Microsoft Windows that are very common. So the codecs are probably going to be on the system. The Visual Studio Code, maybe not, but it could be. And you may not know it's there. So these are kind of complicated. Microsoft released some security updates, and according to a Friday CISA alert on the patches. So CISA is a federal agency that is part of Department of Homeland Security and Cyber Command. And if I got those agencies screwed up, I'm sorry. But CISA is a United States federal government agency that issues alerts, tracking. Great resource they put out. They manage MS ISAC. And there's now an ISAC for every industry segment. So there's like a financial ISAC and all these other things. So the ISACs are ways of disseminating information to participants. So if you work for a company, they may participate in ISAC. And I think as an individual, you can. I mean, I subscribe. I'm a member of ISAC through a couple of different groups that I'm a part of. I get MS ISAC alerts, and they send out all these things. And I know everybody's going, what does MS ISAC stand for? And I'm like, I don't actually remember what it stands for, so you can look it up. It's just ISAC, come on. I'm sure I'll think of it in a little bit, and I'll be like, oh, I should have said that. I'm not going to start this whole video over because I couldn't remember what that was and look it up. I guess I could look it up, couldn't I? What does MS ISAC stand for? I'll teach you how to use Google, which is always, I'm amazed when somebody's like telling me that that they're like, where would I find this information? It's what does it stand for though? MS ISAC is the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center. So this was a federal operation that was designed to try to hand off information about threats, particularly cyber threats, to various and sundry people. and pretty much anybody that wants it can get this. Now, ISAC does issue, like, I think, I don't know if they issue classified, but they issue like more restricted information as well. If you're a different level of member, like you're in, the FBI or something, you have a different subscription service. So this one, Codecs library handles objects in memory. And now interestingly, that was a 10. We were looking at 1472. So this one is a 7.8 out of 10. So not as severe as the one we looked at a little while ago. It execute arbitrary code. And again, they use language like arbitrary code, which just means they can run whatever they want, is all that means. Remote, launch an attack, blah, blah, blah. Of course, if I had remote code access to your system, I wouldn't launch an attack. I would probably build myself a way to get into your system forever, even after you patch this, right? So that's one of the big dangers. Because I'd go in there right away and create a way to log into your system so that I don't need this vulnerability. Only customers, that's what my arbitrary code would be. Only customers who have installed the optional HEVC or HEVC from device manufacturer media codecs. So I don't even know what that is. From Microsoft stores. So this means that this is that part where you have to assess this threat. And if you're trying to assess a threat, this is the really critical information here. Have you installed this media codec? Well, you say, I haven't, but now you're managing 3,000 computers. Did anybody on campus install it? So do you know? And you may or you may not. And if you don't know, then it's a threat. And so it may be really challenging for an organization to say, because you saw how many of these were there? 17,000 already this year. So how many of these have you evaluated? And is this a threat to the campus? Well, it might be if this is installed somewhere. And is there an old server sitting over in a building somewhere that somebody installed this on a year ago? I don't know. So this is about managing that network. They have all the versioning stuff here. And then there's an update. So these out-of-band updates means you would have to go to Microsoft and download this patch and then install it. So this is not part of an update push that they've. Now, it may be later. So Microsoft will do what they call a security roll-up. And once a month, they push all these roll-ups out on their Patch Tuesday roll-up. And so if they feel this affects a lot of people, which it probably does, they'll probably push the patch out with all of their regular patches. But in the meantime, they've issued this out-of-band patch. The other one exists in Visual Studio Code. When a user is tricked into opening a malicious JSON file. So basically, if somebody runs this package, then it will install this, which that doesn't really sound. How is that a flaw? A user is tricked. That doesn't sound like a flaw. That just sounds like a stupid user. I'm sorry. We've all clicked them. Don't worry. We're all stupid users. You just depend on which hat you have on. Either a user or you put on your hat. It's like doctors are the worst patients in hospitals. Yeah, well, IT people are the worst abusers of the system. Because I would never click on a malicious package file. No way. My JSON, I would never do. Yeah, right. Sure. A tricked into opening. That's confusing. We may have to go look at this one to see what it was. I'm going to click on it. I'll take the chance. So this is a CVE database here. Interesting. They don't really say exactly what that means. I mean, to me, if you have to trick the user into opening something, that's not really a flaw that you can fix. You know what I mean? I mean, how is that a CVE? There must be more to this. Well, how about we read the manual? An attacker would first need to convince a target, the target's the victim, to clone a repository and open it in Visual Studio Code. Oh, I see. So basically, they're saying that they have to get you to download something from somewhere. So like a GitHub. So if you go to GitHub and you clone the repository there because you want to use some tool, then so it is kind of a phishing attack. But basically what they're saying is they have to get you to install this file, this JSON file, onto your system. Once they do that, then they can come after you. When you're using this package, right? And when it runs, it means the malicious code could then open a malicious. The attacker's code would execute when the target opens a malicious package. They just kind of keep coming back to this sounding it's like a Trojan or something, and that doesn't. Well, okay, I guess it's something that can run. So if they can embed this, Justin Stephen reported the flaw, so the issue stems from a bypass or previously deployed patch for an RCE flaw. So this is now a vulnerability in a patch repair. So it stems from a bypass of another patch. So see, this is another CVE 16,881. So these things just keep escalating. And it says Microsoft says Visual Studio Code has botched a fix, and by doing this, you can bypass that patch, which allows you to once again do this same thing. So a lot of times when hackers learn how to do something, they keep trying it, and so when somebody patches it, if they can go around it easily and so forth. And then as we get on down in this, and I'm not, like I said, my goal here wasn't to try to explain the entire vulnerability, but to tell you more about like how to read these things. So they had just put out their October patch Tuesdays, and I guess this was found, and so then they're doing these out-of-band patches. So basically that is a lot of jargon in an article, and they're basically sharing that with you as an important piece of news. So it would behoove you to learn how to start reading these things. I would really encourage you to go check out that Security Weekly segment from last Thursday as well. The first segment was very interesting about how to actually prioritize all of these kind of things in your enterprise. So check that out. Thanks for watching today. Happy Monday, and I'll see you next time. Bye.